Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Inshallah, you're all well. Today, I'm joined by Sister Mia, who is based in the States. Assalamu alaikum, sister. Inshallah, you're well. How are you today?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I'm fine today.
Alhamdulillah. Sister, you've lived in so many different parts of America, and hopefully, inshallah, we're going to get into that as we go along. But originally, you're from Michigan.
That's
So,
right.
for people that don't know, can you describe how life was like growing up in Michigan before you were Muslim, in terms of your upbringing in a religious context?
Sure. So, I was born and raised in a very, how would I describe? It was filled with lots and lots of drugs. Um, I eventually became a ward of the state. And then I was adopted by a great aunt, my grandfather's sister. And my life with her, because of her age, she's now in her 80s. So I was essentially old school raised, and we were raised in a Baptist church. And that was essentially how I grew up. I pretty much grew up in the church. I was very much involved. I was very much involved in the youth center. I've played basketball pretty much all my life. I'm very athletic, but that has always tied into the church as well. And so, um, I would say that I've lived quite quite an experienced life in that I've experienced a lot of different, in my opinion, lives before I came to Islam. And alhamdulillah, life before Islam was definitely challenging. And I'm amazed that I even happened upon it, mashallah.
MashaAllah. I mean, may Allah bless you for going down that road. I mean, you probably have heard about, the controversy recently surrounding Islamophobes targeting Muslims in Dearborn, where shady characters like Jake Lang are openly disrespecting the Quran to provoke the local community over there, which is just disrespectful. And obviously, it's staged because this Jake fellow is a Jewish man who pretends to be Christian, who conveniently claimed that he was carrying out his religious bigotry in the name of Christianity. But despite this, Muslims in Michigan didn't fall for it and conducted themselves well. What are your thoughts on Muslim majority areas in Michigan, like Dearborn and Hamtramck? Have you ever visited them or even just passed through?
So, funny enough, when I became a Muslim, I knew nothing about these places. And one of the things that I talk about in my own personal journey video is how I was just so saddened and felt betrayed by the people around me who knew about Islam in places like Dearborn. And I was made sure of to steer clear of them. I remember a family member even saying something to the effect of, don't talk to those Muslims because they'll do something to your mind and make you convert. It's almost like when people convert, the idea was that they had been, there was some mind trick that had been done. So I never really got too involved with the community that was more near my actual home. But I do know that a lot of the American Muslims that are very vocal in the community, especially in politics, are from places such as Dearborn, places in Minnesota, places here in Ohio, which I only recently came to understand has also a huge Islamic community. So I'm always in awe of what I see in the American community with regards to Muslims, but I have to confess I did not know how broad the Islamic community was in America until recently, within the last decade, probably.
I've also recently heard very positive things about those places when it comes to, hospitality, low crime rates, especially
Mhm.
Dearborn. So
Yep.
if I do visit America, inshallah, one day in the future, Dearborn would be where my family and I would most
Same,
likely go.
same,
Um,
inshallah.
Obviously, switching back to your journey, it's amazing that obviously you were told to stay away from Muslims and to stay away from that whole ideology, as people would
Yeah.
maybe call it then. So can we talk about your journey to Islam? You've been Muslim for around 20 years now, I believe, alhamdulillah. How did you
So,
go from Christian?
to make an extremely long story short, my sister-in-law was a really good friend of mine from high school, and she was a Muslim, which I didn't know. And one time we were headed out to a party, and she went to pray. And I was just like, what the heck are you doing? And she's like, oh, I got to pray before we go. And funny enough, when I think of that moment, she prayed, she covered herself fully, and then she wore a mini skirt. out.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just remember that, but I look up to her so much now because she's changed so dramatically. And then she introduced me to her brother. And her brother and I were very alike in that I was very strong in my faith. He was very strong Muslim. And we just bumped heads, constantly argued, constantly just went back and forth. And then our arguments led to lunch debates. And then we eventually ended up becoming married. And so sometimes people say, you converted for a man, but that man will never say that because he knows how much he had to talk to me. And we just had, he has, he has such an admirable way of conveying his faith. He would never, and I won't lie and say that he's the most eloquent in speech, but there are people that you talk to that you can feel their belief in God and that radiates from them. That is my husband. And that's essentially where my interest in the faith came from, was just that overall, even with his sister, her still praying. I wondered what kind of faith could draw you away from the life that we were living to the point where you would literally go and acknowledge the fact that you were about to commit a sin, but still do that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like, I was in awe of the Muslims and just the way that they had faith around life, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and your husband for your reversion. And especially because he tried really hard to convince you, and he won that battle.
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
I actually remember seeing a video in which you said that listening to Zakir Naik and the late Ahmed Deedat also had a massively positive influence on you during college days.
Yeah.
And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, also reward them for their great dawah work. And I think the same can be said about millions of people around the world.
Yes, absolutely. I would like to reiterate that really quickly. If you have any sort of reservations or questions, I would suggest you look into their videos because they have a really good way of answering the most debatable questions in a very simple way, especially Dr. Zakir Naik. Some people feel like there can be a bit of sarcasm to this, but I personally believe that when you are debating, especially in regards to religion, there will come a point where you'll say things in a very matter-of-fact way. So I would say that to anyone who would go and watch the videos, just go in with an open mind, and just listen. You'll be profoundly surprised at what you hear, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. No, their videos are very positive and enlightening for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to your husband, and obviously you ended up getting married and you've been able to cultivate a successful long-term Islamic marriage, subhanAllah. How have you maintained a solid long-term marriage as a Muslim woman?
MashaAllah. It's by the will of Allah. I am not one to give advice in that realm. The only thing that I would say is you and your spouse have to always be grounded in your faith, because as two individual human beings, you will always have different views of things. You will want to do things differently. And with my husband and I being cross-culturally married as well, there were things about myself as a woman and a wife that I was carrying into an Islamic marriage that didn't belong there. And he had African traditions that didn't always align with Islamic values that he had to come to understand weren't Islamic values over the years, because in his culture, Islam and tradition had really melted in together. And so sometimes they don't know what the difference is. And him being married to someone who's not of his culture, I would say, hold on, Islamically, I don't have to do that, And so we had to have a lot of really hard talks about just our roles with each other, our expectations, how we raise our children. It's not been an easy road, but it has definitely been a worthwhile one. And I am definitely grateful and thankful for what I've learned about myself and about him. Just overall in my marriage. Marriage is, in fact, I believe, for everyone. I just think that people have this idea of what it's supposed to be rather than what it actually is. So.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, like you said, marriage does take two people to really make it work. And, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless your marriage, and may He
Thank
give all
you.
of us success with our spouses.
Absolutely.
One thing that you did touch upon is about, obviously culture, mixing culture with Islam. I come from a Pakistani culture, and it's very similar. Sometimes growing up, you don't know what was Pakistani culture and what was
Yeah.
Islam.
Mhm.
So you do have to sit and actually look at Islam and
You
think,
do.
correct and is this not. And I think marriage is a definite pain point that needs to be addressed for our community in the West.
Yes, I agree 100%.
I mean, if you look to the Quran and Sunnah, of what is expected of us as wives and husbands, instead of man-made ideologies, that's a solid foundation to build from.
It
Like you
really is.
and
It
keep
really, really
back
is.
to keep coming back to that when there is turmoil in your marriage, to resolve matters, conduct yourselves more accordingly. That's the way to go, I think, for a successful marriage, inshallah.
Absolutely, inshallah. I think marriage is probably one of the hardest things that we will do as believers on this earth. If Allah has willed it in your path, and it's one of the things I always tell my friends who aren't married. If they see me in times where they feel like my marriage is going through like a difficult thing, or maybe I'm venting to them about something, they've gotten to the point where they make fun of me because it's like they'll say, "Oh, she's just talking about her bestie again." Like they realize that I go to them only as almost just like a release, but they know he's my rock, he's my number one, and I love that people know that.
Yeah.
It's I love that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I want to just move on and talk about Texas. Recently, I saw something about a supposed Sharia ban over there, despite Sharia not even being an existing legal practice in that state. And I've heard both positive and negative things about Texas in
Yes,
regards to Muslim and Islam. You've
yeah.
also lived in Texas, so can you share about what the Muslim community is like over there?
So it has a wonderful Muslim community. You have some of the most popular modern day Islamic scholars there right now, with Dr. Yasser Qadi, Dr. Umar Suleiman. You have often visits from Nouman Ali Khan. They're all really good friends. And so there are a lot of great lectures out there. If that's something you want to be close to, it's great. But for me and my family, I didn't find the general people of Texas to be very inviting.
Okay.
For someone who's lived in both the North and South of America, there's no such thing as Southern charm. It's not.
Hmm.
It's just feigned kindness almost, and it's not even feigned anymore. Most people are just direct with you. But what I will say about the Muslims is that they're extraordinarily vocal, and they are not shy. And there is a large community that is developing, as in an entire, almost, I want to say it's almost, one could even call it a village. They've erected an area, an estate that has, Arabic names and Islamic schools, and essentially the shopping malls are all. You could call it Little Arabia if you wanted to. It's definitely giving Islamic, and it bothers the outside community from what I read when I was down there. And that was where the Sharia law, and it literally was a Sharia law ban saying, and I think what it's really just supposed to represent something to the Texans who disagree with the Muslim population that is growing tremendously because of the scholars and the lecturers and such that are moving there. But also you have places like Houston and Dallas that are full just generally of Muslims. Like some of the Muslims that I met in Maryland were coming from Texas, and they were raised in Texas. So I just think Texas is doing what a lot of America is doing. It's just trying to fight off the natural growth of the Muslim community. And I say natural because I'm a teacher. I was a teacher down there, and these are kids that were born and raised there. Like these kids don't know. These are American children who are being raised in Islamic schools with Islamic values, and that's how they identify. first and foremost. And the old school population just isn't liking that. But these are Americans, and I wonder what's going to happen down there. But I know for sure it's not for me. It's
Yeah.
not for me, and it wasn't for my family. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest, prejudice is everywhere. And
Yeah.
but if you carry yourself with respect and respect other people, I've usually found that the response is mostly positive.
Yeah.
There's definitely a crazy online culture of discrimination against Muslims promoted by various political factions that has been spilling over into real life. But
Yeah.
on a person-to-person level, for me, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But I do think people like Valentina Gomez running for office in Texas by promoting hatred from Muslims is pretty
Mm.
ridiculous. But I doubt the people in Texas will fall for it. At least I hope not.
I hope not.
But you never know. Have you personally dealt with Islamophobia in the US over the years since becoming Muslim? From
Yeah.
family, friends, or strangers?
Yeah. So I won't bombard you with like all the stories and such, but I've definitely dealt with issues of wearing the hijab in certain different places. I myself, like so many other women, have gone through a development with the hijab, and at first I just simply covered my hair, just the hair itself. I didn't even care about what I wore down below. Then it became where, just it was a gradual process. And while that's happening, you can see the changes in your friendships. You can see the changes in the people who want to hang around you, especially once it gets to the point where you're properly covered. I know you can understand what that does to former friendships and people you thought were just like totally okay. I've had to fight for being able to pray during the day when I'm at work. I've had to go through situations where I fought for my children to be able to pray in school. So I think these are the things that many Western American or Western Muslims would go through. I'm sure it happens in the UK as well. From what I understand, from what I hear, it's in Australia as well. And I just find it, I teach my children that this is a part of life as a Muslim. I don't want them to have some misconception that certain people are mean because they treat you this way. No, we were taught in our books and in our sunnah that this is how we are treated in this world because of our worship of Allah. We're strangers. We will always be strangers. And so to people, human beings, when things are strange, they fight against it. And so just understand that people may always be fighting against you, despite you just wanting to just be present.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't be present. Sometimes you just can't, so.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, there's been right from the time of the Prophet to now, there's always been Islamophobia. There's
Yeah.
always been hatred towards Muslims, and it's how you deal with it and how you come out of it. I've heard many stories about strained relations between family members from reverts. But the majority of them, heal over time after they see how being Muslim actually improves the lives of their loved ones, especially after children are born.
Yep.
But there's definitely, like you said, there's no denying that Islamophobia is a very profitable industry in America and the West.
Oh, yeah.
And it's being pushed by, the Israeli government with so many scammers making so much money from it right now. It's just it is a trying time for us, and it's again how you conduct yourself and how you conduct yourself with others as well. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, keep the ummah safe from the evil ones.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you actually, but you talk about the scammers, and have you found that individuals online are using Islam to promote their channels, like fake reverts? Really? So someone brought that up to me, and it made me very apprehensive about continuing my life after becoming a Muslim series, because I didn't want that to be the idea. But, after talking to this individual, they were telling me, you don't stop something good, because of something bad, whatever. But I did not know this was something that was happening. That was something that was prevalent. So that must make your job a bit more difficult, kind of wean out who's real and who's not.
Yeah, I mean, I've not come across anybody that's actually pretended to be a revert or pretended to use Islam. If anything, I found the opposite. I found that people that are hating Islam are making more money from it online, so that's the road they're going down. I find a lot of hatred from, just non-Muslims more online than I do in my everyday life. But again, whoever said that to you is correct. Why stop doing something good because of someone doing something bad? You should just keep going on the path that you're on, and hopefully, inshallah, Allah will bless it, and it will be, positive for people that watch and that get benefit from it. Recently, you said that you moved to Ohio, which is amazing. How has that been? How has Ohio been in terms of connecting, with an Islamic community there as well as a local masjid? You said that you found recently there is quite a big Islamic community over there.
Amazing. I couldn't believe, my husband and I, we were both like jaw dropped the first 2 days that we got here, and we kept going to Walmart and we just saw so many Muslims. And it wasn't just like how sometimes like in Texas you would see Muslims, but they're not wearing abayas or they don't wear the niqab or something like that. Here you see niqabis, you see brothers wearing thobes, you see it all, the long beards. And we were just like, what's happening? Like, this is Ohio, And even I had someone comment on one of my videos recently, like, go to the north, you'll find like a ton of Somali markets and such like that. So I'm just so happy with just having such a large community. Even in Texas, we were near, but because of the way Texas is, it's so big, you had to go through highways to get everywhere. Use the freeway. And I hate to drive, but I hate to use the freeway even more. And so I just wouldn't go. But these are like communities like near me. Like there's right down the street, I think it's called Shabawi Coffee. I'm not sure. It's a brand. It's known here in Texas, but it's a Yemeni coffee place. And I'm so happy because of course I had to give up Starbucks. So just like, this is great. This is so great. Yeah. So alhamdulillah, so far, I'm enjoying Ohio. I'm happy to be closer to home, which is Michigan, right up above me. And it feels like home. It feels a lot like home. It's extremely cold and snowy. So that's good.
Alhamdulillah, that's beautiful to hear. Inshallah, you and your family settling okay and build upon the community over there. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was there's been a lot of propaganda recently surrounding Nigeria, in particular with a supposed genocide of Christians, and I've done videos to debunk this, as being getting more misinformation being spread by the usual suspects. In reality, there are US and French-backed extremist groups that are harming both Muslims and Christians in Nigeria, with more Muslims and Christians actually being harmed in the process. Yeah. But regardless of who's being harmed, senseless violence is wrong and should be condemned. Since your husband has Nigerian roots and you've also lived in Nigeria at a time, how was that experience? And did you notice a divide between Muslims and Christians and other communities over there?
SubhanAllah. So Nigeria really taught me so many things about just community itself. There is a divide amongst the Muslims and the Christians in a strange way, in a way I've never seen before. One example I can give is that generally, if you are mid to upper class in Nigeria, you can have what's called a house help, which is just like a housemaid, a house person. But 9 times out of 10, if you are Muslim, then yours will be Christian. And if you are Christian, yours will be Muslim, which I found very odd. But what's worse is the treatment that happens with these individuals. I didn't witness it in my own household, but I witnessed it in other people's households. And I even spoke out against it. I could not understand how you could treat a human being in such a way. So it does not surprise me to hear that there are groups in Nigeria that would support American politics and make one religious group look worse than the other. I can't speak on either, whether or not it's, majority Christian or majority Muslim, but what I will say is this: whenever there is an atrocity happening, and people say that Muslims are to blame, Muslims are also usually the victims of it. So I ask people who claim that these things are our doing, why is that? You know, and some people will say, like, there are Muslims who will say that it's because of the sects and things like that. But like yourself, I kind of do my own deep dive into some of the videos that I watch. And of course, I have the ear and eyes of family members and my husband's family and such. And it's not at all what popular media would make you think it is. The people of Nigeria are suffering. They are suffering. And many people would do anything to get out of that suffering. And both Muslims and Christians would do well to help each other and not work against each other in this instance. I don't like to speak on politics directly in regards to Nigeria just because I'm not a citizen. And, I feel like I always tell people I'm Nigerian by association, but I do love Nigeria. And I have both Muslim and Christian family friends in Nigeria. And so I don't want to speak negatively of either one, but I will ask that people just look into things themselves, because we are obviously at an age where we can't just accept what we see on video or hear in the news.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the majority of brothers and sisters I've spoken to from over there have described Nigeria as being quite an integrated place, where different groups live quite peacefully. I think America's sudden involvement over there and the suggestion that they might involve their military has more to do with stealing Nigeria's resources, in particular, the oil. But like you said, let's shift away from the political stuff and talk more about religious issues. We already touched on sort of gender roles for Muslim women in terms of marriage, but I've also seen you speak about how Muslim women have to honour the rulings of Islam regardless of our gender biases. So how can we, going forward, educate Muslim women who are more Western in their thinking and accepting the beauty of gender roles in Islam, especially with things like wearing hijab, polygyny, abiding by your husband's wishes? I mean, you spoke about your sister-in-law obviously praying and then going to a party in a miniskirt. How can we educate Muslim women better?
So what a beautiful question. Bismillah. I have 2 daughters, and
Mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. It's very scary. I remember I cried when I first found out I was having a daughter. And and I try and raise them in the best possible way. I don't believe that I've always been the best example for them, but at this age where I am right now, I feel like I'm teaching them something extremely important, and it is that identifying as a Muslim at every stage is so important, because Allah is always protecting those who are in the worship of Him. And when you identify, for example, the way you and I are dressed, this is a form of worship. And when we walk outside and we're identifying as Muslim, we are protecting ourselves divinely. And I always want my daughters to be protected, but I also want them to be free thinkers. And I've had an issue over the years where I felt like I couldn't have those two things together as a Muslim woman up until recently, up until Allah, alhamdulillah, gave me an understanding that it's Him that frees you of all of these ideals and these egos that we carry with us as men and women. One of the issues that I had with my husband was that I've always hated asking people for anything. Many women are like that. And I think many people don't realize that. Like, people think that women are just naturally dependent. And I think it's the opposite. And I think that's why Allah made it incumbent upon us to be obedient, because he knows our natural nature is to not be, and I feel like I've come to understand these things over time, and I'm trying to get my daughters to understand that as well, that being a woman isn't, it doesn't have to contradict with being a free person or a free thinker, and that you living your life, and I'll say you specifically because obviously you look much different than I do, and we both look different than many Westerners, but you more so than even me. People will accept me before they can accept you. I want my daughters to understand that a woman like you has said, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I only care what Allah thinks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's important to me. I want them to know that when you're in the worship of Allah, when you're obedient to Allah, then that's the freest form of thinking. Because the opposite would be that you're thinking like everyone else. And what's more robotic than that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Ya Allah, I always try and put my words into my thoughts into words, and I feel like they never sound like what I want them to sound like. But yes, that's how I feel about that.
Oh, mashallah, you said it beautifully, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect your daughters and allow it to be easy for you to bring them up in a Muslim household and in a Muslim community. In our scriptures there is sound reasoning for every ruling, and once we've researched the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained certain things, then it becomes clear to us why things are the way they are, and that they are absolutely fair. Like you said, Allah has made everything the most just and fair way. So I do encourage sisters, rather than listening to people who are not qualified or worse, that hate our religion, do the research for yourself, seek out someone who can explain things from a scholarly perspective. Hijab is mandatory. It's a protection for us. It's a sign of our piety and dedication to God. Polygyny is halal. It's also a choice for all parties involved, and it's not a responsibility that most men even qualify for, to be honest.
Yeah.
And our responsibilities as mothers and wives, it's a blessing, that we not only provide solace for our husbands, but we as women have raised every generation of Muslims, alhamdulillah. And obviously you're talking about your daughters, and you're speaking of children, you have 4 children, mashallah. And if I'm mistaken, I believe that a couple of your children have learning difficulties from what I've heard before. So how do you as a mother handle bringing up Muslim children in the US? And can you give any advice to sisters who may also have kids with special needs?
Inshallah. So my son, my eldest, he's 17 now. He is autistic, high functioning. And my second child, my daughter, Jamila, she is deaf. She went deaf when she was 9. Mashallah. And it's been a heart-filled journey, I guess. When I found out my son, I felt like I knew from the moment I looked at my son. I felt that I knew, and I told people, and no one believed me. And you can't get tests until you're this age or that age. And so it took them a while for them to confirm on paper, but I knew. And I was scared. I was scared, and I cried for a really, really long time. But my husband, I don't know how there's a lot I think he keeps to himself, I'm sure. But he was very positive. He was just like, this is what Allah has given to us. We should say alhamdulillah. We have a special job. We have a special responsibility. And as Ali has grown up, his name is Ali, he has the most amazing gift of learning the Qur'an in the easiest way. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. And his father is the one who teaches him. And so there are certain things that look like obstacles in our lives, and things that look like they're going to bring us down, but really they're the things that strengthen us and bless us the most. And I have found that to always be the case with my children. I feel like as the mom, I'm the type of mom that babies my kids. I protect them. I'm that mom. I wouldn't say that I'm like the PTA mom. I'm not like overly involved in school, but I go out of my way to protect my kids. People used to say, Maya, put them down for a second. You know, you don't have to hold them all the time. You know, so that's how I am. And it scared me to find out that a part of myself was in my children. In the sense that scientifically speaking, I guess a part of you physically breaks off into the child, or the child part breaks off into you. Can't remember what it is, but it felt like, you know, and I explained it to my daughters once, it feels like my hearts are walking about outside and they could die at any, like, I don't know what you're doing out there and it scares me, you know, but if something would ever happen to you, I can't explain how much it would hurt me, you know, and that I've learned in and of itself is a test from Allah. You know, learning to put my kids second to Allah, learning to trust in Allah's decree with regards to them. You know, we tell ourselves as moms, we want what's best. Well, did you forget that Allah created him? You know, Allah created Ali the way that he is, and he gave him to you. So the test is yours. What are you going to appreciate him? Are you going to still teach him? Are you going to maintain the responsibilities? And so no matter where you are in the world, whether you're here in the United States or some, you know, backwoods somewhere where there's no good education and such, your responsibilities remain the same. Your test is just different. Your child is not the same as mine. It's just, but the the responsibility is the same. You have to love, protect, teach them to be good Muslims, teach them to pray. These are all the things you have to do. Those are their rights on you. You have to abide by them, no matter that child. And that has been the learning experience so far as they get older, is just learning to appreciate their stages and then what I'm supposed to do with them in that stage.
It's so interesting that you said that, because I literally had this conversation with my husband a couple of days ago. Someone that I know, a family friend, she just recently lost her 4-year-old son very suddenly. May Allah, you know, give her peace and her family peace. And it was that thought, because I have a child of very similar age and another one of a very similar, they're both very similar ages. And I said what you said. It's like, you know, a part of you is out there in the street and you have to just trust it, or even just in the house, you know, going up the stairs.
You don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
You know, you're going to trust that, inshallah, if they're in their room, that they don't fall off the bed and they don't hurt themselves. Like, it is very much a scary thing as a mother and a father, I'm sure, too. And to hear your story, what you have to go through with your children and the sacrifices. And again, you know, Sister, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your sacrifices that you make for your kids. And it brings on that gratefulness and that blessing that children do bring. And again, that blind faith in Allah, that, you know, every prayer, every dua is, protect my children, keep them safe. Protect my children, keep them safe.
And do you believe it? If you believe it, then go ahead and live your life. You know, did he not protect you when you made the dua for yourself? Weren't you protected? Why wouldn't you protect that small child? You know, so I definitely understand that. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry your friend is going through that. I love that.
I've got 2 small children. I told you I've got one on the way very soon, inshallah. So it's not as easy as it is anyway. I know it's not, but especially with the added responsibilities that you have. So, you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you.
Thank you as well, sister. Definitely.
Thank you. I just have a super chat quickly from SR68720. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for your work, sister. You are a valuable voice. Thank you so much for saying that. Makes it all worth it. Thank you for joining me today, sister. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for being so patient with me in my out of break.
No, thank you. I can't believe you're making time to still work. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Everyone, please go subscribe to Sister Mia's channel. It's Mia in the Middle. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless, protect you and your family and make you know, life easy for you, inshallah.
Thank you as well, sister. Thank you. I hope you deliver easy, safe, happy, beautiful baby. Inshallah.
Keep me in your duas. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.